Hey everybody, it's PartyElite here with another episode of Total Breakdown. Kicking the week off with a classic grudge match. Today we're going to see Eumaies lead his dwarf throng once more, this time against the Skaven of Aerocrastic. We begin of course with talk of composition and deployment and some adventurous decisions from both sides of the field. We start paused because there's a lot of action kicking things off immediately. The Dwarfs first, they are being led by a Rune Lord atop his anvil, and the front line here consists of this alternating line of Longbeards and Dwarf warriors. Right behind them, we've got a pair of rangers, as you can see, and then right behind them, we've got these miners with blasting charges facing the rear over here. Then off to the front, to the side here, we've got these miners with blasting charges covering this flank. We have a runesmith covering this flank. We've got this unit of cannons in the center here already firing away, hoping to get some damage done nice and early. While these gyrocopters are back here, I think providing some coverage to the rear over here, and then again, obviously eager to push forward and get involved in action up front. While up front, we actually have a lot of Vanguard deployed units. As you can see, we've got these Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, not Vanguard deployed, but deployed further up ahead, alongside these Dragonback Slayers. And then we've got these Ulthar's Raiders, alongside these Miners with Blasting Charges, these Rangers, and Bugman's Rangers as well. These guys are all Vanguard deployed, hoping to get that aggression kicking off right away. And if we take a look at the Skaven, they're being led by Queek Headtaker right in the middle over here, and on either side of him we have a unit of Skaven slaves each, and right behind him we have these clan rats. On the flanks, you can see we've got a Warlock Engineer each alongside the units of clan rats that they are, I guess, being escorted by. And we also have a Plague Clock Catapult here, another one over here, and a third one in the center. That one in the center is being protected by these clan rats as well, while there's a doom wheel all the way to the back over here. A fair bit of Vanguard deployment from the Skaven as well. As you can see, we've got these Gutter Runner Slingers with poison over here and over here. And then we've got a set of 3 Night Runners with slings as well over here, and then we've got 2 units of Skaven Slave Slingers here and here. So a very interesting approach, very little armor-piercing capabilities and anti-infantry capabilities outside of Queek Headtaker himself. Let's take a look at how it all breaks down. As you see, and as I mentioned, we have some early aggression right away, of course, as over here we have these Gutter Runner Slingers with poison pulling back into safety away from all of these shots from these Rangers and the cannon as well, immediately opening up shots, trying to get some damage in to the enemy Plague Clock Catapult over here, and the Plague Clock Catapult responding in kind, firing back into the cannons, hoping to get rid of these artillery pieces nice and early. And you can see we have a Dwarf there tossed back to kick things off. He's going to get back up and hustle back to his cannons, and they're going to continue firing away into the Plague Clock Catapult back here. And you can see the Skaven are all slowly rotating, getting ready to engage and sort of prepare a new front line, perhaps, with the Plague Clock Catapults continue to fire away into the cannons over here, again trying to remove that very threatening piece of artillery from the Dwarven ranks here, and the cannon doing the same here, trying to get rid of these Plague Clock Catapults. You can see this Plague Clock Catapult now as well, firing away at the cannon as well, just hoping to eliminate that unit, trying to get rid of it as quickly as possible, while the Gyrocopter here pushing forward, hoping to get involved. And these Rangers over here were also sent forward to try and shut down the Plague Clock Catapult nice and early. And you can see the Rune Lord as well creeping forward, hoping to get involved somewhere, but he is going to get focused down by all of these slings, of course, firing down, not doing too much damage, but getting some hurt in there to kick things off. While here you can see we've got these slingers pushing in from the flank here, hoping to fire into some of these Bugman's Rangers perhaps, while the Gyrocopters are firing or pulling over here to fire at the Plague Clock Catapult, which is also taking a lot of damage from all of these Rangers and Bugman's Rangers included. So they do the clever thing of just dropping their gear and pulling back into safety. They're wavering right now, they're very close to giving up, but they've taken very little damage, so they can come back and get involved once again later on. So a good call over there, and at the same time you can see we've got the Warlock Engineer alongside these Clan Rats pushing forward, hoping to intercept these Rangers and Bugman's Rangers as well, while the cannon continues to fire away at the Plague Clock Catapult. And you can see off to the other side over here, this Plague Clock Catapult now involved as well, firing away at the cannon, and the cannon is at about 50% health, so good work there, trying to again eliminate that unit, as I said countless times already. And the Gyrocopters, you can see back here now looking for an opportunity to get involved and shut down some more Plague Clock Catapults perhaps, while this crew here returns to the equipment to try and continue firing. And over here as well, you've got these Gutter Runner Slingers with poison firing away at Bugman's Rangers, and now focusing in on the Dragonback Slayers, hoping to get rid of those Slayers, while you can see the Doom Wheel creeping forward as well, hoping to get involved. And to the left flank over here, we've got these Miners with Blasting Charges and these Rangers pushing forward to hopefully maybe get an angle from this side, creep in towards these Plague Clock Catapults. But of course, we do have these Gutter Runner Slingers with poison being revealed and now firing away at some of these Miners with Blasting Charges, while over here you can see we've got the Plague Clock Catapult now firing away back here into Bugman's Rangers, while the Doom Wheel just crashes through these Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, doing a touch of damage, more so the disruption, and hoping to push through right into all of these Rangers while these Dragonback Slayers turn around and begin giving chase to the Doom Wheel as quickly as possible. But of course, with a speed of 72 on the Doom Wheel is going to be fine in keeping that gap wide open as long as it maintains correct angles. We of course also have the Gutter Runner Slingers with their poison, firing into those Dragonback Slayers, slowing them down rather significantly. And you can see some good concentrated fire over here from these Night Runners with their slings as well. We've got a lot of slingers in this area able to fire away and get some damage into these Warriors of Dragonfire Pass and the Dragonback Slayers as well. So very nice use of range capabilities. And over here as well, these Bugman's Rangers now turning around to respond in kind and firing away at the Gutter Runner Slingers with poison. And as that's happening, you can see off to the side here, again, we're sort of trading fire. We've got the Warlock Engineer and the Clan Rats moving forward as well to intercept this aggression. And the Plague Clock Catapults come in with some beautiful shots over here. Take a look at the amount of damage being done. The Dwarfs might be small, but they explode rather large. As you can see, those shots are doing a tremendous amount of damage. I know I'm in a cinematic shot right now, but it's taking the health down from all of these units to about 50% from more or less full health. And that's both of these units of Rangers being absolutely demolished there. We've got this Doom Wheel coming in as well, getting a fair bit of damage done, of course, bringing in the Fear and Terror as well, hoping to break this clump of range units as quickly as possible. And as you can see over here, these guys are starting to get terrified. We have Bugman's Rangers here still sort of willing to stick around and fight, but their melee, or rather their morale, sorry, is dropping extremely quickly as well. And we do have these Dragonback Slayers giving chase as well, hoping to, again, close down the gap to that Doom Wheel and shut it down once and for all. And take a look at that. Beautiful work there, using those Plague Clock Catapults brilliantly, just shutting down both of these units of Rangers. And now we can just focus in on the Bugman's Rangers over there. Meanwhile, over here you can see we've actually got Quick Headtaker diving in on the Rune Lord. A bad call by the Rune Lord getting involved in this situation here. We've got Skaven Slaves surrounding him, holding him in place. Stand Your Ground gets activated in the area as well, helping these Clan Rats as well as these Skaven Slaves out. And of course, Quick Headtaker uses Trophy Heads atop the Rune Lord, reducing his melee attack and melee defense significantly. And he's going to try and shut that leadership down as quickly as possible. While down over here, you can see we've got the Clan Rats and the Warlock Engineer trying to close the gaps to some of these Rangers, or perhaps even these Miners with blasting charges, and they're getting their blasting charges off into the Clan Rats, hoping to slow them down and cause a little bit of damage and destruction and devastation before those lines are actually able to meet, if we can even call them lines. Absolutely ridiculous spread over here in this battle, and you can see the Plague Clock Catapult continues to fire away towards these ranged units as they try to pull away from the Doom Wheel, giving the Dragonback Slayers here enough room to pin that Doom Wheel down and cause some damage. While back here as well, you can see we've got the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass pushing in towards these Clan Rats, hoping to get rid of them, but Death Frenzy comes in, buffing their melee attack and weapon damage significantly, and so they're able to take care of these Warriors of Dragonfire Pass with minimal issue. Over here as well, we still have these Gutter Runner Slingers with poison firing away, hoping to get some damage done on that right flank. While over here you can see we get the Warp Lightning coming in from the Warlock Engineer, again trying to get some damage into these Rangers, trying to shut down all of that range support. And unfortunately, on the topic of range support, you can see the Dwarf Cannon is still being manned here and is still able to fire away, and it decides to focus in on the Doom Wheel now instead. And the Doom Wheel has taken a fair bit of damage, and under cannon fire it's going to continue taking more damage until it ultimately falls apart. But take a look as it pulls back into safety away from these Dragonback Slayers, and we get a nice interception from these Clan Rats as well as the Warlock Engineer. Beautifully done there, beautifully managed. And at the same time, the Plague Clock Catapults now switching targets, firing elsewhere, but the Dwarfs have finally sort of wizened up here, presenting long, thin lines, no more squares being presented here, so it's a lot harder to get accurate hits. Of course, the Plague Clock Catapults are still going to try, and as you can see, these Longbeards are taking a touch of hurt over here, but definitely, it definitely helps to go thin and wide when you've got that much artillery on the other side of the field. Meanwhile, you can see we've got these gyrocopters able to sort of freely roam around back here, and they actually managed to shut down this unit of Plague Clock Catapults rather nicely, and now they're able to turn around and perhaps shut down this unit over here, while the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass are going to try and punch through these Clan Rats who have now lost Death Frenzy. They want to try and punch through and get into these Plague Clock Catapults perhaps, or maybe send some more units in there through these gaps to shut down that artillery piece, because again, they've done a lot of work to health and morale. While back here you can see we've got the Warlock Engineer as well as these Clan Rats just shutting these Miners with blasting charges down. Of course, these Warlock Engineers have both brought with them the Musk of Fear as well as the Warpstone armor, and that means that there's going to be damage being dealt to units within the radius, and of course the Musk of Fear also reduces the attack capability. So great call with those Warlock Engineers, and you can see as these guys are falling back, we've got these Miners with blasting charges trying to get involved over here, while back here on the right flank still changing, or rather exchanging fire I should say, with these Gutter Runner Slingers with poison. And now you can see the Doom Wheel over here as well diving in, trying to provide some assistance over here to shut down these Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, while the Plague Clock Catapult continues to fire away at these Longbeards who are trying to close the gap into these Clan Rats as well as the Warlock Engineer, using Death Frenzy over there as well to try and hold that line for as long as possible and cause as much damage as possible. While you can see over here now These miners with blasting charges completely giving up on the fight. The clan rats and the warlock engineer able to dive in using the warp lightning once more on these rangers, trying to shut down all of this range support. Great call. They're dropping their health by another 50% over here to about 25% or so on these rangers. So beautifully done there. While you can see over here, we've actually got the Rune Lord giving up on the fight. Quick Head Taker, of course, trying to take heads here. Rune Lord is pulling back into safety, and Quick Head Taker is going to try and close that gap and get rid of Dwarven leadership as quickly as possible. While over here you can see we've got the Plague Claw Catapult continuing to fire away. Unfortunately, these clan rats give up on the fight, and that will allow these Warriors of Dragonfire Pass to push through and shut down the Plague Claw Catapult, as they very much need to do. And over here you can see these Bugman's Rangers continue to fire away into these Gutter Underslingers with poison, who continue to provide support over here, firing at these Dragonback Slayers. And now the Plague Claw Catapult again, hoping to shut down these Longbeards over there, while also we've got these miners with blasting charges closing the gap. And back here you can see at the same time we've actually got Quick Head Taker chasing after the Rune Lord again, hoping to finish off Dwarven leadership, because that will cause a lot of trouble, of course, for the Dwarves, getting rid of some very important runes that they're able to use to cause damage and slow units down. And also, I mean, the debuff in leadership is a huge hit, and the Dwarves do come onto the field with some significant leadership numbers, so it's always nice to sort of chip away at that as quickly as possible. So Quick Head Taker here, just trying to drop that Rune Lord as quickly as possible. We actually have Ulthar's Raiders over here turning around, focusing in on Queek, and take a look at the damage that Queek takes right now as he gets marked by Ulthar, and in comes that one volley. He drops by about 25%, but he does manage to dive in and get in on the Rune Lord and absolutely drop him. Watch as that Rune Lord topples over. I love this animation. Down goes Dwarven leadership. But as we pull back and get an overview, you can see a lot of the rats are actually giving up on the fight as well. We've got these Skaven slaves just absolutely slaughtered and butchered over here as well. These clan rats do not wish to stick around all the way over here. These guys just returned from a rout. They just rallied. They're all the way back there. The Doom Wheel has also been largely taken care of under all of that fire from the cannons. We've got the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass and these Longbeards as well atop that Doom Wheel, just trying to shut it down, because again, that is a very threatening armor-piercing unit there. Anti-infantry as well. The only other one apart from Quick Head Taker, of course, just moving around trying to shut all of these dwarves down. And meanwhile, over here you can see the Warlock Engineer trying to come out on top over these miners with blasting charges, using that Warpstone armor as well as possible to try and take care of that unit. And Quick Head Taker over here looking for an opportunity to get involved elsewhere, and mainly I think trying to get away from all of these Ulthar's Raiders over here. That's very dangerous. You can see his health is already down to about 50%. His morale is down significantly as well, so he needs to pull away as quickly as possible. While over here you can see we've got these Longbeards now able to close the gap into the Plague Claw Catapult, finally able to shut down that artillery piece, while over here the Warlock Engineer getting fired upon by all of these Rangers back here, deciding to dive into these Bugman's Rangers, hoping to shut down that unit. While back here on the left you can see we've got another use of Warp Lightning coming in down onto these Rangers, hoping to again shut down some of that range support. Beautifully done, beautifully placed. These guys are being absolutely destroyed, exploded into little pieces. While back here you can see we've got these miners with blasting charges tossing their blasting charges right into that Warlock Engineer, hoping to throw him around, hoping to cause some damage in there, of course, hoping to come out on top on this left flank. And meanwhile, you can see Quick Head Taker, again, looking for an opportunity to get involved somewhere, needs to try and provide some support to his rats wherever possible. While to the right, you can see we have this Warlock Engineer in a bit of a trouble spot as well, not really having a good time against Bugman's Rangers with all of that range support coming in, while Quick Head Taker over here actually decides to push in for a rear charge into these Longbeards over here, trying to provide some support to these clan rats. So he goes in for a nice rear charge, again, armor piercing and anti-infantry, so he'll cause a lot of damage there to health and to morale coming in from the back there, and some cannon fire coming in, causing a little bit of friendly fire damage, I believe, and that is going to cause some trouble for the Dwarfs on that left flank. And on the right flank, you can see the Dwarfs are in a bit of a rough spot as well. The Warlock Engineer ultimately comes out on top. Bugman's Rangers need to pull back. Of course, they want to use their range capabilities, but here you can see the Plague Claw Catapult has been shut down, completely routing over here, absolutely destroyed the crew, and they are now shattered, while the Gyrocopter here as well, looking for an opportunity to get involved. We've got all three Plague Claw Catapults now shut down. Finally, it took some time, but it did finally happen. A very important move there. And over here you can see we've got both of these miners with blasting charges actually giving up on the fight, thanks to some great work by the Warlock Engineer, great use of the Warpstone, the Warpstone armor, the Musk of Fear, and of course some support from Skaven slaves and range support as well. While here we've got Quick Head Taker using Verminous Valor to toss some of these Longbeards around and maybe get out of that precarious situation, as these Dwarf Warriors over here get shot at as they run towards Quick Head Taker and these Skaven slaves as well. They're taking a bit of a beating. Of course, their bronze shields do nothing to shots coming into their backs, so they are going to take a fair bit of damage, of course, as they try to close the gap towards Skaven leadership. Meanwhile, back on the right flank, as you can see, we've got these Bugman's Rangers completely giving up on the fight, outnumbered by these clan rats as well as the Warlock Engineer in there, and they are already routing. They're going to give up on the fight, and these Rangers, you can guarantee, are going to be the next target, while the cannon here has completely run out of ammunition. So from a great start where the cannon was being shut down at the beginning by the Skaven, we now have the cannon completely able to use all of its ammunition and now able to get involved in melee. A couple charges here and there will certainly help. An important thing to note is though the kill count is low, one of those kills is the Doom Wheel, doing a lot of damage to a very threatening unit, counts for a lot. Let's keep that in mind. Meanwhile, over here you can see we actually have the Skaven Slaves diving into Ulthar's Raiders here. Great call, shutting down that range support, making sure that Ulthar's Raiders aren't able to get their armor-piercing shots in. So beautifully done there, using these Skaven Slaves brilliantly as the fodder troops that they are. Meanwhile, Quick Head Taker over here needing to pull away into safety as these Longbeards dive in alongside these Dwarf Warriors as well. The Skaven Slaves are giving up on the fight, of course, and back here you can see the Gyrocopter looking for an opportunity to get involved, maybe shut down some of these ranged units. There are so many of these Slingers and Gutter Runners and whatnot, so the Gyrocopter has to be very picky about where exactly to dive in, and back here you can see some of these miners with blasting charges, fortunately for the Dwarves, are rallying, willing to fight once more, and over here the Warlock Engineer does get marked by Ulthar, and that is a terrifying position for that Warlock Engineer to be in. But take a look at this. Predictive use of Warp Lightning over here, planting that Warp Lightning just slightly in front of the Ulthar's Raiders over here as they're trying to run away. Meanwhile, these Skaven Slaves get an order to pull back into safety just in case they end up in the blast radius, and as you'll see, a beautiful bit of timing there from the Skaven, dropping that Warp Lightning right on Ulthar's Raiders and dropping health by about 25% to about 25%. So beautifully done, great predictive kind of move there, thinking ahead and knowing the timing on that Warp Lightning rather precisely there. And meanwhile, over here on the right flank, on the topic of Warlock Engineers, you can see this one is being overwhelmed, unfortunately, for the Skaven, completely surrounded, shot down as well, very low on health, and as I mentioned, routing and very close to the edge of the battlefield as well, so it can actually be driven off the field, and that will, of course, harm that right flank opportunity that the Skaven have been coming out on top on for the last little while. Meanwhile, over here as well, you can see a lot of range fire being exchanged between these Gutter Runner Slingers with poison as well as these Rangers, and the Rangers now, I think, turning around, hoping to free up and save the cannon units over here by shutting down some of these Skaven Slaves, scaring them off, but they are already routing, and unfortunately that opens up these Gutter Runner Slingers with poison an opportunity to shut down these Rangers. They are wavering now, and they might very quickly give up on the fight, and back here as well, you can see we've got some Dwarf Warriors willing to fight once more. Over here, the Gyrocopter continues to fly around the back lines there, shutting down various range units whenever the opportunity presents itself, diving in right now into these Night Runners with slings as they pull back into safety. And here as well, you can see some more range units just being absolutely shut down. And back here now, you're actually going to see a very nice use of these Gutter Runner Slingers with poison who have run out of ammunition, diving into Ulthar's Raiders over here from behind, hoping to get some morale damage, and they do a significant amount of morale damage, actually getting these Ulthar's Raiders to be absolutely shaken over here. And numerically in melee, the Gutter Runner Slingers with poison versus Ulthar's Raiders here, kind of a close match outside of the armor and armor-piercing capabilities of Ulthar's Raiders, but just diving in there for the morale damage is actually a genius move there, just trying to scare these guys off because they are a threatening range unit. Meanwhile, over here you can see the Warlock Engineer trying to get some damage into these Longbeards, hoping to scare them off. We've got all of that Slinger fire coming in as well, hoping to scare these Longbeards off, while back to this right flank over here you can see the Dwarfs are very much coming out on top. The Warlock Engineer has left the field. We've got these Clan Rats right at the edge, as well as these Gutter Runner Slingers with poison very close to the edge. They could all be driven off alongside these Skaven Slaves as well, who are, you can rest assured, leaving the field right now. And meanwhile, over here, we've got some more shatters coming in. We've got this Warlock Engineer giving up on the fight, completely routing. So, unfortunately for the Rats, it is turning in favor of the Dwarfs right now. Quick Head Taker as well, very low on health. As you can see, he is not in a good spot. He does pop Stand Your Ground, hoping to come out on top against these Longbeards and the Runesmith as well, intercepting these Longbeards using those Night Runners with their slings. And now you can see Quick Head Taker over here pops Verminous Valor, tossing all of those Dwarfs around. He needs to figure out where he should get involved. He decides to pull back into safety rather than engaging this Runesmith, but you can see the Runesmith does pop the Rune of Wrath and Ruin immediately. Great call over there, dropping health, dropping speed as well, and the Runesmith might actually opt to chase after Quick Head Taker. That would be a very difficult battle for the Runesmith, but you see he does decide to dive in, and immediately, more or less, we actually get these Longbeards giving up on the fight, so the Runesmith is going to have very little support. In comes Trophy Heads as well, dropping his melee defense and attack significantly, and you can see morale dropping instantaneously, health dropping to 50% in one blow there, and the Runesmith is going to have a terrible time and decides to to give up on that fight, of course. Meanwhile, back here, you can still see some of these shattered Skaven slaves. We also have this Warlock Engineer still not willing to rally and return to the fight, while back over here, you can see we've got these Gutter Runner Slingers with poison as well, giving up on the fight against these Longbeards back here, while up front over here, again, that Runesmith, he's completely given up. He's trying to get out of there. Quick Head Taker, though, trying to close the gap. He does get marked by Ulthar, which is a dangerous position for him to be in, but there aren't that many ranged units left that still have ammunition from the Dwarfs, so marked by Ulthar isn't going to cause that much trouble unless he does get caught in melee with that armor reduction, of course. And you can see, of course, we have these Longbeards as well as these Ulthar's Raiders pushing in to get that happening as quickly as possible. The Gyrocopters as well coming in now, hoping to dive bomb right into these Skaven Slave Slingers, getting a little bit of damage in there, and now diving into Quick Head Taker as well, hoping to take care of Skaven leadership. We've got these Ulthar's Raiders coming in as well, of course, with their armor-piercing damage, hoping to eliminate Quick Head Taker, while all the way over here to the side, you can see we actually have these Gutter Runner Slingers with poison diving into and taking care of these Rangers, while back here, we've got these Rangers still willing to fight, still having some ammunition, firing into these Night Runners with slings, hoping to eliminate these units one at a time, while these Gyrocopters, again, take to the air and dive right back in, but they are being shot down by these Skaven Slave Slingers as well as these Night Runners with their slings, hoping to eliminate all the Dwarfs in this clump over here. But you can see the cannon crew rather cleverly trying to shut these guys down, prevent their ranged fire. That's a great use of something like artillery crew, and you can see Quick Head Taker here in a terrible position. The Gyrocopters once more take to the air and pull back into safety. They have taken a fair bit of damage. There are still 3 of them up in the air. Quick Head Taker at about 25% morale. A sliver of health left on that health bar. He needs to be very selective of where he gets involved. He might want to go chasing after this Runesmith, perhaps, but there is the risk of the Rune of Wrath and Ruin that would get rid of Queek right here, right now. Meanwhile, back here, you can see we still have these Rangers firing away at these Night Runners with their slings, and the Gyrocopter, again, looking for an opportunity to get involved somewhere, but needing to be very careful because there is still a lot of range support that the Skaven have, and everyone's sort of forming up right now. You can see the Rats are collecting over here, the Dwarves are collecting over here, lining up, getting prepared. The Runesmith coming back as well to bring that encouragement, that morale buff nearby as well, but you can see at the first opportunity, these slings start firing away, hoping to scare some more of these units off, and the Gyrocopter here, meanwhile, hoping to dive in and slow down some of that range support, perhaps maybe get rid of Quick Head Taker finally once and for all. The Runesmith as well pulling in, hoping to get some work done, and you can see the Gyrocopters just dive in on Quick Head Taker. Their great call, dropping health, dropping morale, and Quick Head Taker more or less immediately begins to waver and ultimately decides to rout. So the Skaven now do not have a leader on the field as he tries to get off the field. The Runesmith finds himself in a bit of a precarious situation, fully surrounded by Rats, but ultimately is able to get away from that. His morale is very low. He is wavering. He's just pushing through and giving chase, I think, to Quick Head Taker. Decides to maybe turn around and get a couple swings in here against all these Night Runners, but again, he's just being swarmed by Rats, completely surrounded, completely clawed apart, and you can see immediately he does decide to rout because of that. Now, it would have been a great idea to actually try and keep that Runesmith away from this clump. He should have stayed away from Quick Head Taker. The Gyrocopters had done their job rather nicely, but unfortunately you can see right now they are being shot down and they are routing as a result of that, but again, pulling away rather quickly into a safe distance. They will rally most likely, and the Runesmith over here as well, being surrounded and chased down by all of these Gutter Runners, Night Runners, as well as now these Gutter Runners with slings as well with their poison, coming in to try and just shut down that Runesmith and get rid of Dwarven leadership. The Gyrocopters, though, can be the heroes of this battle if they dive in and shut down Quick Head Taker, or better yet, dive in and shut down all of these units that are chasing after the Runesmith. Again, the Gyrocopters can cause a lot of damage, and that damage can bring morale damage, and that can ultimately bring some relief for the Runesmith over here. And meanwhile, back here, you can see we've got these Longbeards as well as Ulthar's Raiders staying back there, not willing to push in. Now, normally I'd call them out for sitting pretty, but over here, I think the plan is to stay there, because that way, if the Runesmith is killed, the Gyrocopters aren't in a situation where they tick down the timer. Again, if you only have airborne units, you have no chance of winning. So just keeping those guys back there, I think, because they might otherwise rout rather quickly. So hoping to use them as a way to keep the Gyrocopter in the game over here. And you can see the Gyrocopter actually makes a huge mistake, in my opinion, chasing after Quick Head Taker, shutting down Quick Head Taker rather than pushing into some of these Slingers over here and freeing that Runesmith up. If that Runesmith had been freed up, he could turn around and use his Rune of Wrath and Ruin on somebody. He could maybe get a couple swings in on some of these, not so melee units. Use the Gyrocopter as well for some great rear overcharging and maybe come out on top rather easily, but again, instead opting to chase after Quick Headtaker, who is already routing and already very close to the edge of the battlefield. Might not have been the best idea. Back here, meanwhile, you can see these dwarves still staying put. Over here, these slingers are, I think, looking for an opportunity to get some shots into the gyrocopters. Again, they still have some ammunition left, despite how much they've already been using and how much they've already been killing over the course of this very long battle. They still have ammunition left to shut down that gyrocopter once and for all. But you can see the runesmith giving up on the fight. And despite all of these rats wavering, it is the dwarfs that completely shatter, and is a valiant defeat. Now, this battle showcases the power of Skaven ingenuity. Between excellent placement of plate clock catapult shots, great use of the doom wheel, and constant harassment from gutter runners and night runners and Skaven slave slingers, the dwarfs spent most of their time closing the gaps to Skaven slaves and clan rats, only to be shot down en route. With that much enemy artillery on the field, the dwarves made the early mistake of coming in boxed formations, squares, as opposed to long, thin lines, as I mentioned earlier, which are much harder to hit by artillery. Despite that, though, when clumped in melee, they still made large targets. The gyrocopters were used excellently for the most part, and ample pressure was applied on the rats as well, but they were simply too quick, and without the ability to outrange or outpace them, the dwarves were slowly cut down, despite killing many rats. The Warlock Engineers proved very useful, bringing the Musk of Fear and Warpstone armor on both, not only to reduce enemy health when in melee, but also to debuff stats, and some great timing on the Warp Lightnings were very impressive to see as well. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's always nice to highlight such amazing battles from the community. I'd also like to thank all of my patrons for supporting the channel on a month-to-month basis, keeping the channel alive and running smoothly, and I'd like to thank you all for watching. I'll see you on the battlefield.